If we're going to apply it in a big scale, do we have enough basalt rocks that's good enough to do this?
The short answer is yes. It's a yes because there's lots of silicate rocks around the world that can weather and capture CO2.
This is Bite Size Climate Tech, Season 2.
Because today I have Xinran with me, who is a chief scientist in one of my favorite companies in the UK called Undo. What they're doing is they use enhanced rock weathering to remove CO2 from the atmosphere.
So thank you so much for the kind introduction. So I am the head of science and research for Undo, a carbon dioxide removal company. And as such, today I oversee the development of our measurement reporting verification process, deployment of our field trials, and then broader than that, also development of our geochemical model that enables us to kind of predict rock weathering in our fields out to multi-decade scales.
Like people's question, do you have enough basalt rocks to do that? If we're going to apply it in a big scale, do we have enough basalt rocks that's good enough to do this?
The short answer is yes, but the slightly longer answer is it's a yes because there's lots of silicate rocks around the world that can weather and capture CO2. And it's about picking the right one. Thankfully, the planet provides us with lots of options. For example, you have wollastonite, olivine, basalt. These are all weathering silicates, but each of them have pros and cons. Materials like wollastonite, which weathers really fast, is great, but there's limited amount of wollastonite. But there is a lot of abundance of olivine and basalt on the world, all around the world. And something like 5+% of Earth's surface is covered in basalt. So it's a readily available feedstock. Olivine is another really readily available material people have been discussing. I think it was one of the first material people considered using enhanced rock weathering for. But olivine has high levels of chromium and nickel, which makes it difficult when applied to farmland. So that aside, you're still left with basalt. But what I would say, there is definitely enough rock. And we know there is because there's currently aggregate industry that exists, which is out there every year quarrying and crushing multi-gigaton scales of basalt for use in roads and buildings. So they've already demonstrated that it's possible and feasible to create this material on the scale that you need for enhanced rock weathering. So now it's just a case of repurposing some of that for the climate, I guess.
And if you can give me a number, if you can point our listeners to a website, I will also put a link for people to look at it, if people can look at the data themselves.
Absolutely. I'm happy to share. For Undo, our estimate right now is that globally, something like 600 million tons of crushed basalt is produced annually, which we can use as our feedstock. So that would already get us to something like 150 million tons per year of CO2 removal just from the deployment of that basalt. Exactly. But to get to the gigaton scale, you would need more feedstock. The existing aggregate industry operates in the many, many gigaton scale. So it's definitely something that we can achieve and overcome.
It's already a big number compared to other pathways. I think people always ask me that they would be like, oh yeah, it's all great, but where can you find these? I don't know where to point them, but I was like, they're just sitting there from the aggregate industry. But I don't have the number. Now I have the number. I can tell them next time.
How would you explain this to an 8-year-old?
How do you convince them that there is enough basalt rocks for you?
Yeah, no, great question. I would say, rock that's best for the planet happens to also be one of the most commonly available things. It's everywhere. As we walk around, I live in Edinburgh. I'm surrounded by beautiful mountains, and every single one of them is made from basalt. We live in a very active, molten, volcanic planet. The Earth is, constantly creating more basalt for us to spread around the planet. So we're not going to run out of rock anytime soon. That's probably not the best estimate for the 8-year-old, I think.
I think the 8-year-old, they just need to understand that Mother Earth has its own plan. As long as we're willing to try and figure it out, they will always have its magic to work together with the guardian angel and have enough paradise for us.
You're totally right. And, this is not new. Like, scientists estimate that just from rain falling on, silicate rock, naturally, the Earth is removing 1 billion tons of CO2 a year through natural weathering. So, once again, planet Earth is doing a much better job than we've ever done. And we're just trying to learn from her and seeing if we could do this in a more efficient process to speed up. But none of this is new. And the fact that nature can remove that much CO2 means there's a lot of rock out there.
1 billion CO2 is one...
It's 1 gigaton of CO2 a year just from natural weathering. It depends on which feedstock. which rock you're talking about. I think basalt itself only accounts for a sub-fraction of the gigaton, obviously following on olivine, following on balastenite, following on different things. There's lots of rocks that weather, and all of that combined gives you about 1 billion tons. I think that's according to the IPCC.
Thanks so much for explaining those exciting concepts to me.
Expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official position of Bite-Size Climate Tech. We thank our guests for sharing their insights and experiences, and we thank you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey. Until next time.